So I guess the backstory behind everything was made the decision to buy a boat, found something that was kind of in my price range, not really the end state design that I was looking for, but because I was looking for something that I could do a little bit of project work on as well. It didn't really matter. That'll kind of become evident when I start crapping on about converting it into a centre console. It was a 18-foot cruise craft, kind of like cuddy cab, runabout style boat. I'm pretty sure it's an old, like late 70s design, but it was a early 90s build, give or take. But it ended up being a bit of a lemon, which I suppose kind of happens in the boat buying kind of world. The bloke who sold it to me kind of talked it up. He certainly put a fair bit of work into it to make it present really well, so he can go and get fucked. And I made the deed to buy it. First trip out, the old Yamaha 150 saltwater series 2-stroke started overheating, so that was one of the first issues. That ended up costing about $1,500 to get a full service and the heads cleaned, but from there it started working fine. Got a couple more trips out of it, and then the last trip we went out off Lucinda, just out to like Trunk and Bramble, just all those reefs out there. And one of the seats ended up pulling a screw out of the timber. So yep, cool. School holidays, took a bit of time off work, went to do the seat repair. And while I was underneath the seats, because they had a big round base on it, I was like, hey, let's just cut an inspection hole underneath the floor so that we can have a look and see what the underside looks like. Because old mate did say that he was told the stringers got done, the stringers and transom got done about 3 years ago. That might be true. If it is true, then they were done by someone who has no idea what the fuck they're doing, because they're in shit state. We're talking very wet. Some of the stringers were very rotten, but also just general construction. Like you'll see in the video, like one layer of woven glass up against the plywood stringer, which was completely delaminated. So truth be told, like we were probably one big wave away from potentially cracking the hull, because there was just no internal structural support there. Big issue with that is I plan on taking the kids out a lot more. And if that would have happened when they were on board, then that's pretty disastrous. So I made the decision to completely gut it and, kind of fix it myself. Got a bit of leave put in, total of about 6 weeks, taking some long service where I can kind of dive into it. And I think after the 6 weeks, the majority, if not all of the structural work will be complete. And there might just be a couple of little things like fit out kind of stuff to kind of tackle, especially like the electrical stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of backstory into everything that's going on. Kind of just recording it for the fun, like my own benefit. One thing that in my line of work I've realised is that I don't have enough kind of memories documented either by video or photo, which is something I'm pretty sad about. So I want to do this build series partly just for me, but also because I've kind of realised that there isn't that much out there on YouTube, especially in Australia, of people doing kind of like large-scale rebuilds of their boats like this. There is a couple, and I'm certainly referencing a lot of dudes when it comes to the process of doing it all. But yeah, so this is just going to be like an extra opinion or an extra kind of way of doing it that is available for other people who might have found themselves in the exact same position as me, spending fucking a little bit of money and buying an absolute fucking lemon and needing to do something about it. So hopefully this build series goes relatively smooth, it goes relatively quick, and then I can start filming some memories of actually getting out and after it, fishing with the boys and with my family and stuff. So that's kind of where I'll go if I choose to continue videoing all this kind of stuff. That'll kind of be where I go into the future. So yeah, that's kind of backstory and what's to come. As you'll see, all the build process of where we're at right now. Obviously missed recording a little bit of it because I didn't really have any GoPros or anything like that beforehand. But going forward, I'm going to try and get as much footage as I can of everything that I do, and then you know, as we move forward and hopefully start getting out fishing and catching some decent fish. So yeah, that's that. So a bit of a side-on view of the rig. It is an old 5.5 metre cruise craft Ranger, or Ranger 18 foot. When we did have it on the water, it's a real comfortable boat. You don't get thrown around too hard, although it has been pretty rough a couple of the times that we have taken out. We know that it can handle about good 17 knots of wind with a fair bit of swell, because the meteorologists up here suck. So we found ourselves out in those conditions and it's handled pretty well, which is why I kind of decided that I'm gonna fix it up instead of get rid of it, because it is actually a pretty good base kind of hull, exact kind of size that I'm looking for, nothing too big. Definitely big enough to get out to the reef, depending on where you go and what the weather's like, and just kind of really handleable, because it is only that 5.5 metre length, not too big. That's the name of the game. Obviously at the moment, no donk on the back, and as you'll see in a bit, the repairs have kind of started taking place. Out of the boat, up the front there, cut an inspection hole when I was trying to repair the seats. Saw that the stringers are completely shit house. So if you can see here, just a single layer of woven to the plywood stringer that's completely delaminated, and that's the same across all the stringers. So I think that like the main structure that is holding the boat together at the moment is the fact that the floor is quite thick and it's tight around the hull. Stringers aren't really doing shit at the moment, so we'll get to them in a sec. But today is going to be all about sorting out the transom, which I'll show you in a sec. So a bit choppy, and I didn't get a chance to film any of the demo because I didn't have any cameras at the time, but what I've done is I've cut the rear part of the floor out, as well as where the stringers attached to the existing transom, and I demoed the entire inside of the transom, which was just ply. I think it was about 2 pieces of 19mm laminated together, and I'm just left with the outer skin of the original transom, and I had to cut out the splash well as well, and that's out the back, and I'll show you that a bit later. But that was a fair bit of effort, took a fair bit of timber, a fair bit of grinding to get all the shit out. But this is more or less now prepped for the new transom to go in, which is here. So cut out of a single piece of 38mm Thermalite. I've altered the splash well a little bit so that it's going to be just the width of pretty much any motor, so a little bit oversized to the saltwater series that I had on it previously. And this will just ensure that whatever motor I end up going with, if I don't end up putting the old Salty back on, that it fits. But it's not going to be the full beam of the boat like the old splash well was, and I'll chuck in a couple of stills of the old splash well so you can see that just took up way too much space in the boat. So this will give me a little bit more deck space as well. So this is the job for today. Is my mate's coming over. I'm gonna fully scuff up and acetone rub down the inside of the outer skin of the boat, and then do the same to this piece of thermo. We're going to laminate a couple of pieces of chop strand mat to this, and then we'll thicken some epoxy on the inside of the skin and screw this bad boy in, and hopefully that'll set overnight and be good to go. So you should be able to see that in a sec. So a bit hard to see kind of the orientation here, but this is the old splash well, and as you can see, like, it's massive. Went across the full width of the rear of the boat. It's also quite deep. It's about 700mm deep, and all in all, it was just kind of shit to use. It took away a lot of deck space. With the weight of the buoys in the back, as well as the big 150, it would fill up with water pretty easily, and it'd take ages to drain. So there was a fair bit of like low sit in the boat when it was on the water. So like I showed you before, that new the new transom is going to have a much smaller splash well that isn't going to be able to retain as much water, and the rest of it's going to be a little bit higher. So even with the weight of the donk going back on and all the buoys in the back, it shouldn't sit as low in the back when we're actually on the water. So just did the scuffing on the Thermalite. We've got this bad boy, I think that's a 40 grit pad on it. What I noticed though, because of the nature of like the circular disc, was it takes big like deep cuts out of it, and it's hard to scuff the entirety of the surface. So I did what I could with this And then I switched fires just to a steel bristle, like a welder's brush, and just hit over the entire thing to make sure that there was a fair bit of scuffing across the entire surface. I'm not overly worried because this side of the thermalite that is going to laminate into the transom, it's quite porous, like the finish on it isn't exactly smooth. So there's plenty for the epoxy to grab onto, not the epoxy, sorry, the thickened polyester resin to grab onto, as well as all the resin that'll be underneath the piece of chop strand that sits on this. So I think that scuffing will be more than adequate for what we need it to do.
Alright, so cut out a little bit there, but we were just doing the finishing touches on spreading out all the shit on the inside fillet. We chose not to do the full fillet. We'll do that once we decide to actually glass it in, but we just got all the excess pressed into the gap between the hull and the new sheet of thermo, just so that it was all smooth and there's less work to have to do to prep it for when we do go to lay the glass all on. Out the back, would I do it differently? Probably. Like, I would probably get some long bits of angle iron or something so that it's applying even pressure. That being said, we did get enough screws in that we got plenty of leakage out of all the old transducer holes and the old bung holes and all that kind of shit. So pretty confident that there is a very big, sorry, not big, but very thorough kind of coverage of that thickened polyester resin mix. So I'm gonna let that dry for however long it fucking needs to, but we'll leave all the clamps and stuff on at least overnight, and I'm just gonna come and keep checking it, see how it's curing off. Like, all that thickened stuff takes a little bit longer, or it seems like it takes a little bit longer to start kicking and curing, but it all seems to be doing the job now. So yeah, we'll have a look at that over the next couple of hours, make sure everything's going good, and just leave it all tied up. I'm going to leave it in this state until I finish the demo. So I'm not going to do any of the glassing in of the piece of thermo to the hull. I'm not going to do any of the glassing or the tying in of that. But now that there is a bit of rigidity in the rear of the boat, I am going to take it to work where they've said that I can take it out to the grass out the back and just fully complete the demo. So what's to come there will be all the floor stringers out. I'm also going to get rid of the cuddy cabin, and I'll show you this when I actually do it, but I'll be cutting the gunnels in a way that I think it'll make it easy for me to build off them again when it comes time to shaping them so that the gunnels fit in the whole center console design. So yeah, next step is to just let this cure off and then get the whole boat to work next weekend and just, yeah, strip it all out. So that's the plan.